And this next part, I'm going to be grabbing a student file where they've got some geometry, and I'm going to show you the workflow for Dave's amazing low detail proxy version of a character. So let's go ahead and share my screen. So here I am in Maya. I've got all my tools set up, and I'm going to say import. And so let's go to assets, and let's see, it'll be, there it is. There we go. Import. Now, what has Paul said about scale on your characters? Does he have you building them at real world scale or 1/10 scale? Real world scale. Okay. So one of the first things I'm going to do is tap the space bar, and I'm just going to go like this and say create measure tools, distance tool. And I'm going to go click and click like that. And so this character is 502 units, which my units are centimeters. Oh, wait, she's huge. Yeah, that's 5 meters. She's a giant. That's awesome. Okay, I'm just going to grab all this high poly stuff and I'm going to scale it by, let's 0.35. Yeah, there's about 5'7" with the hat. Let me just check my, yeah, okay. So she's still a little too tall. Missed the mark. So 0.34. Oh no, 0.33. Now this is tricky because she's on platforms. I'm going to assume that the I've seen it done both ways where the shoes are below the ground plane and above. But from an animation standpoint, I always feel like having the bottoms of the shoes at the ground plane because she's not going to be wearing different shoes, right? Yeah, okay. So I'd build based on that. So now that I've got her in position, I'm going to take all this high res geo and I'm going to go like this, create a display layer from selected. Yeah, save. And so now I'm going to show you how I make a proxy version of the character. I'm going to say delete those. I'm going to say file save scene as assets. Save as. Okay, so I think I've got enough stuff here to sort of build a proxy character. Delete. I'm getting rid of that measure tool. And so now you get to see Dave's phenomenal modeling skills come to life. Bring that up. Boink, boink. And you'll notice that the sphere that I brought in, it's a pretty low polysphere. I'm going to hit 3 for smooth, get down, boink. And all I'm looking for is something that approximates the silhouette of the character. I want to build it symmetrical. That's pretty good. And I'm going to call this head proxy, boink. And then probably, chances are you're probably starting to get a sense of what this process is going to end up looking like. Go, boink, boink. Make another sphere here. Boink, boink. And I'm honestly being a lot more finicky about this part of the character than I normally would be, mostly because it gives me a sense of character facing. Let's see here. And I mean, I can even get so finicky as like going into let's see, vertex. Oh, whoops, silly Dave, not that. No outliner. Okay. Jaw proxy. Okay. And I'm just going to grab these two guys. Okay. Oops. Control C. Ba, 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 ba. Another sphere. And I feel like probably this character easy enough to build out of spheres. tilt of the rib cage, pelvis, so on and so forth. And I would keep the high res within the scene for doing the layout of the skeleton as well. I'm only going to build the left side and I'm going to mirror it across to the right side. Yeah. Actually, here, just to make life a little easier, window outliner, I'm going to take some of this other stuff. Jacket, I'm going to keep because I want that in the hat. So let's go like this and call this clothes, save. Just trying to hide some of the things that I don't want to deal with quite yet. Objects, there we go. Okay. The pelvis. Go. Legs. Go boink. Cylinder. Boink. Now, the other thing you'll probably notice me doing is I'm going to leave gaps in some of the joints as well. This cylinder here, I'm gonna duplicate a few times. So I'm going to go here and say in my modeling, mesh tool, insert edge loop. But I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to go boop and put an edge loop here at the top and boop. One at the top, one at the bottom, so that if I hit 3, you'll see it preserves the volume of the cylinder, because I want to make sure that if I hit 3 for smoothing, that it still maintains its proportions relatively. You'll see here, for example, I got nothing for the neck, nothing for this midsection stuff. Not a big deal. This is beautiful geometry. It's nicely sculpted. It's just way too high to animate with. But we don't want to have to wait until you go through all the process of retopology and stuff to be able to start blocking in some animation and use some planning. So I'm just going to ballpark where that leg begins and ends. Let's see here. Boink. Huh. Oh, right. Silly Dave, object mode. That. I'm going to try and get it as close as I can to matching the angles and proportions of the limbs. I like that. Okay. Yeah, her thighs are sort of wider than that this way. So I'm gonna and let's see. So I'm just using my display layer to toggle it on and off. Okay, close enough. I'm not going to do a perfect version of this. Control D to duplicate, move this down. And the reason I do that is because I know on the limbs, sort of human structure and proportion, the thigh and the calf should be roughly about the same length, just as the forearm, the upper arm is roughly the same length, which is why we can do things like touch our own nose or touch our own shoulders or squat down on our haunches. If your character is not proportional, the second you go to animate it, you're going to notice it's going to be a real pain in the butt. I can even do something like this, like I can go here to my polygon, for example, and I'm just going to toggle this invisible for a sec. Grab this guy and go, show me the vertexes for a sec. Grab just these guys, scale them in a little bit. And I'm not being super meticulous about it. I just want something that's ballpark. I'm going to, let me think about this. I think I'll use spheres, or I don't know. I'll use something different just for the feet, just because why not? I'm going to create a polygon cube, and let me pull this guy out here for a second. Now I've been sloppy here. I haven't been naming stuff. Let's see here. Polysphere. What's this guy? That must be the chest. Think. Okay, this guy here, I'm just going to manipulate the edge loops here. Edge, double click on an edge, except I got to go to my select tool and I'm going to turn off soft select like that. That allows me to do things like this. Take that, move it like that. Take that, move it like that. That. Just making a cube that stays a cube when you hit smooth. There we go. There we go. So 3 smoothing still stays nice and square. So I'm going to go like this. Boink. Get sort of the shape of that foot. Blink, blink. Control D to duplicate. Now, if you can't model better than this, I'd be worried. But you can see quickly how it starts to clarify and define the silhouette of the character pretty easily, and obviously with very low skill and effort. You can see now there's the character. If I saw this moving and animating around, this would be enough for me to show where the character is in time and space. Easy peasy. I'm going to grab these 2 guys here, Control D to duplicate, because Dave, being lazy, also knows that the arms and the legs are probably very close in proportion. So I can take these leg pieces of geometry that I created and move them into position for the arms as well. Wait, wait. I'm not belaboring or worrying about the orientation or what axis because they're going to be skinned anyways. Thin that out. Thin that out. There we go. You'll notice I'm also going through and adding R to the right side stuff. Okay. And then a sphere for the hand. 3. If I wanted to enthrall you with my incredible poly modeling skills, I do the fingers, but I think I've shown enough for you to get the idea. As you can see, I'm not super quick at this, but how long did this take? Ballpark, what do you think? 5, 10 minutes? An eternity? How long? 25 minutes. All right, that's pretty good. That's on schedule. I said about an hour. It's going to take less than that. See here, I didn't name these guys. I'm going to go mesh combine just to make this a single mesh. Part of my rationale here is I am getting rid of anything that as an object would have to deform. So I'm going to say edit, delete by type history. Yeah, modify freeze transforms, modify reset transforms, modify center pivot. So now all of these objects, if I select them, you can see their pivot is in the center and it's oriented to world space. So it has none of the memory of all the bizarre rotational stuff that I was doing to get it into position. It has no history. I'm going to take these guys here and I'm going to say edit group. I'm going to say Control D to duplicate. I'm going to say scale X. I'm going to say -1. Boop. Oh, look at that. We've got our arms on the other side. I'm going to grab all of these objects now. And I'm going to, or actually, before I do that, I'm going to go to the group node, step up one. I'm going to say modify freeze transforms, modify reset transforms. So now that group node. And then I'm going to grab these guys and say edit ungroup. Can ungroup leaf level transforms. Oh, interesting. Window. Oh, actually, modify freeze transforms, modify reset transforms. Now let's try it. Edit ungroup. Will it let me do it then? Oh, interesting. Window outliner. Interesting. Why will you not let me do that? I'm going to try this here. Okay, that's weird. So it let me unparent it from the group. Huh. Yeah, I don't know why. Okay, delete, delete. And all those R1s now I can change to L. Okay. Now, the reason I'm keeping these things, oh, I forgot the and proxy, right? Now, the reason that I'm keeping all of these things separate is for the skinning process, mostly because I don't want to have to deal with proxy skin weight painting at all. And because none of this geometry is going to sort of be transferable or useful in terms of skinning, I don't need it as a unified mesh. So I could easily grab all of this together and say mesh combine and turn it into a single mesh. But by keeping it separate, that's going to allow me to a 100% skin to a single joint for the entire object. And that will also speed up how quickly Maya assesses it. Even having slight deformation along the length of the bone, for example, it's not necessary anyways. It's not going to give me any greater detail, and it will speed up the assessment. So now that I've got this, I don't need any of this high res geometry. I could put additional fins on there for like this or like the bell of the skirt, for example. I could put a piece of geometry in there to mirror sort of that silhouette, and I definitely would. I'm just not going to go through that process here right now because it doesn't really add anything to the demonstration. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go like this and say, hey, high res, select objects, and then I'm going to go delete and unused, select objects. Oh, it looks like layers, delete unused layers. Oh, okay, select objects. And again, there's those guys, delete and layers, delete unused layers. I'm going to do edit, delete all by type, history. So now I've just got a bunch of polygeo based on my character rig with no sense of history where it came from. There should be no transforms or values on it. I'm going to grab them all together and just say modify center pivot. And that mostly is just about making it easy to find them later when I'm doing the skinning thing. And then I'm going to go edit, delete all by type history. And deleting history is one of the things that in rigging, it's a huge pain in the butt. It's procedurally difficult. And essentially what's happening is Maya is deforming an object, but the entire time under the hood, it has to remember everything about how that object was created, just in case you like say, hey, roll back to your state when I created you. And so whenever you have a student built rig that's like, I don't know, it's just stupidly slow. I'm getting like 2 frames per second, even though there's not a lot there. It's because of history. So getting rid of history on this proxy character is really important. It's going to speed up how quick the character moves. Now that I've done that, I can go ahead, save this as ProxyGeo, and I can move on to the advanced skeleton part of it. So I'm going to say File, Save Scene As, and let's go like this. Proxy Geo, like this. Book. Okay. Blink like that. Save as. Okay. So let's go ahead and get our, I'm going to pull up my advanced skeleton here. Boop. Okay. So we're just going to do our usual sort of like bring our character rig in. So let's see, preparation, model, create. There we go. Clean. Yeah. Okay. That's all good. Model check. Check. Select the model, then let's see here, window outliner, blink, blank, check. Okay, clean. Okay, just checking. What's it saying in the script editor here? Let's load the OBJ export plugin. Ah, interesting. Okay. Yay. Check the symmetry, clean model. Okay. Okay, so new scene, save, reference, assets. Oh, interesting. Try this again. Huh, interesting. Open scene. Try this again for some reason. Did not behave as expected. Try this again. Clean. Great. Yeah, this part of it's not working. I'm not sure why. Great. Clean. There we go. Okay, now it's behaving. I was forgetting to click on a part of it. Okay, and then let's see here. Model check, check. Oh, select the model. Outliner, don't need you. Don't need you. Window, outliner. Geo, check. Blink. This might be where it doesn't behave itself, but not too worried about it because it's simple primitive geometry. I don't really care. So I'm just going to go like this, go to my outliner, select my geo, hit 3 for smoothing, say file, save scene as, and in the assets folder, yep, save it as geo1. Yes, okay. New scene, reference, go to assets, ASCII, there's my geo reference. Okay, and then define the objects. So here's my character, and you can see it's got the high bike. There's lead unused layers. Okay. In, define the objects. Objects. File reference editor. Bink. Okay, so there's my geometry referenced in. Define the objects. Again, yeah, okay. Bink. And I'm just going to put everything as skin, maybe. Bink. What's going on? There we go. Skin. Okay, there we go. Okay, bypass, import. Okay, so here we go through this standard process that you've experienced before where we scale up our character. So let's see here. Scale. There we go. Okay. Now, how many of you have gone through the advanced skeleton process before? So the process is pretty simple. Flow your way out from the root. Let's see here. Just checking my proportions. So you can see how the shoulders are falling pretty low here and the hips are falling pretty low. So I'm just going to scale the character up a teensy bit, holding down control button with middle mouse on the scale, just slowly trying to get like the eyeballs and the jaw roughly aligning. If I still had the high res geometry in here, I could use that as a guide to sort of like, hey, where should those eyeballs be? And I do want to try and get as close as possible. So as I flow along, I can, transition this stuff back a little bit like that, try and get the head and the neck sort of falling where I'd expect it to be, like this. Let's see here, boink. There we go. And then shoulder, I'm going to put the top of the scapula right there. This guy, and I can never remember, I'm going to do it with rotation. I can never remember if it's rotation or translation. I'm going to do it with rotation. Boop. 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 That shoulder. Rotate it down. And it's usually a good indication that the model proportions are well done if, as you start to position stuff, you can see things starting to fall into place pretty quickly. Like that. Go. There we go. Hip is, I think, pretty good, but I'm not 100% sure. Again, I probably should have kept the character rig in there, but let's just proceed, see what happens. Hmm. Oh, right. She's wearing platform shoes. Dumb Dave. Oh, yeah. This is kind of actually, this is a really interesting challenge with Alana because essentially I've been building the character proportionally as if their feet were flat on the ground, but I actually should have been doing it basically scaling it as if she was flat on the ground and then translate it up to match the tops of the platforms. Yeah. The skeleton should be based on the underlying topology of the character, which presumably means the clothes. And even like, for example, a huge bulky guy like me, I would still be placing the joints based on where my joints would actually be, whether I was super skinny or super fat. The joints are the joints, and because that's where the articulation points and the rotations are going to be, and that's what's important. You would probably end up doing additional joints off of those to give you control of those things that are sticking out. Somebody's got some tentacles on the hips, they'll need additional joints. But yeah, the joint should be based on where those articulations are. But yeah, I forgot the big platform shoes. So I sort of scaled this character a little goofy. So I'm gonna have to do one of these where I go scale the character down. Let's see. Scale the character down a little bit and then translate the hip up to get the character back into position. Yeah, this is actually a really interesting challenge. Now, for this, Balana, I'm not sure what'll happen. Yeah, I might want the foot controls based on the bottoms of the platform shoes. So yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna rethink that. Let me think about this. Yeah, I'm gonna rethink that. So instead, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna move the knee up to where the knee is, like that. I'm gonna move the ankle to where the ankle is, like that. But I'm gonna move the heel down to the ground and the toe down to the ground where it's supposed to be. I think that will give me the correct articulation. I hope it does. Let's find out. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Let's find out. This guy in. Okay. And there we go. So I'm gonna assume that this is probably correct. I've done my fitting. I'm gonna say this is where I would add any additional stuff, twist, bendy controls, things like that. And then once I'm happy with the placement, I'm gonna say, let's see, fit mode. I just want to check something. Update now. Just making sure it's fixing the orientation of the joints. Build advanced skeleton. Let's see what we end up with. All right, that actually looks pretty, that's pretty close. The platform shoes is the part that I'm not 100% sure on, but let's see here. Yeah, okay. Now, yeah, that rig, the shoulders are a little tight to the neck. So I'm going to toggle fit in advance. I'm just going to take the shoulder here and I think it's is it control to move it, E or W, control. Oh no, how do you move? Who remembers how you move the joints without moving anything downstream? Is it Control Alt? I'm trying to remember. Oh, insert. Thank you, thank you. Insert. Let's try. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah, all right, that worked. Because the shoulder controls were really tight to the body, and that's actually one of the things that I find toggling between the and let's rebuild it. toggling between the control skeleton and the fit skeleton is if your character controllers end up in a weird place based on other rigs that you've seen, that's usually an indication that you've done something wrong, and you want to try and check that. That's better. Although the angles of the shoulders look a little goofy as well. I probably want to check that because they should be roughly parallel, but let's see. Actually not too bad. Oh, I see what I did wrong. Yeah, I see it now. Let me fix that as well. So I'm going to say toggle fit in advance, grab this joint, function insert, W. So see how the shoulder was sort of, it's kind of weirdly forward of the chest there. I just need to translate them back. So see now that it's at a straight line, when I go rebuild advanced skeleton, you'll see that shoulder control is more square to the torso. The other one that I see all the time is the pole vectors of the knees are in a goofy position. I just got to check that. There, that's better. Okay. And you know what? The pole vectors are nice and straight ahead. I do want to check when I do the skinning how these feet behave, because that's the part that I'm not 100% confident I've placed. Well, no, the pivots are close, not quite. The feet are the one that I get wrong most often that I have to go back and tweak it. But I'm going to go like this and say file, save scene as, and I'm just going to call this proxy fit because I always like to sort of save my scene file when I was at the stage of the fit skeleton, just in case I want to roll back. And so let's assume I'm just going to move down. And with advanced skeleton, you just flow your way down the chart. You can move up or down, but generally, once you get one piece done, you move on to the next piece. So I'm going to close it down. So I had done the body fit, and now I'm at deform. For deform, I've been using option 2, the skin cage. For my money, that's sort of the quickest, cheapest way to do it, and it gets a pretty good result. This does not work as well as this. Okay, so option 2, create the skin cage, and it basically just makes a based on where your controls are. Now, because I'm not dealing with any smooth skinning stuff, I'm literally just loading it based on yeah, you know what? The skin cage is probably going to be pretty darn close. And it's important to note, none of the skinning stuff I do here is going to carry over to my final mesh anyways. It's mostly just about the proportions of the rig and having something that I can quickly animate with. So I am going to just create the groin locators and adjust those to make sure that they're correct. So like this guy here, I just need to move down here. That guy's where he needs to be. And then adjust groin area. There we go. And so basically you just copy the weights to the geometry. So I'm going to go here, window outliner, grab under the deformation geometry. There we go. Model geo. This guy here, I'm going to grab all that proxy stuff and I'm going to say copy weights. And it'll just copy the skin weights from the skin cage. Once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to test the deformation. Grab this shoulder. Boink. Boink, boink, boink. Yep, there we go. Making sure the rotations are all what I expect. Yep. Beautiful. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, controlling. Boink. Once I've done that, delete skin curves. And I think I can even get rid of the skin cage if I want. I can leave it in there if I want. But now I have a fully functional proxy character rig that I can move forward with animation. Oh yeah, I forgot to test. So the simplest way to test the feet is I'm just going to use the roll attribute. And that shows me how the foot. That's much closer than I thought it would be. Yeah, if I had built some proxy geo for the platform shoes, that probably would have helped, but that's actually pretty close to what I expected. So yeah, you know what? I'm going to call this proxy rig version 1. File as proxy rig version 1, save as. Okay. So there you go. If you know the proportions of your characters, you can be animating within an hour. And I don't use the advanced skeleton tool very often. Every time I do, I'm always like slowly plodding my way through. Hopefully for y'all, it's more recent than me and it'll go even faster. But What you don't want to do is sit on your hands for animation. Animation is iterative, just like everything else in the pipeline. You want to be able to show me rough blocked in scenes and get feedback. You want to start testing out your cameras and stuff so that you're not just sort of like scrambling and throwing it all together in the last 2 weeks. That's not a good strategy for success. So take a moment wherever your character rig is right now, tonight, tomorrow, slap together a proxy rig so you can start blocking in your scenes, doing your camera layout and showing me what your plan is. Okay. You don't have to have a finished model to move forward.